Hello, Mode, Leon, and anyone else who's watching this. My name is Worthy, and this is going to be my first time doing a VOD review for a potential person to just to help them out in Overwatch. I've been doing a lot of coach work myself, learning the game. Purchase sessions from Pico, which is a organization that helps people with Overwatch and other games, of course. Um, and I wanted to give back as much as I can to the community. I do really enjoy coaching quite a bit, so this is my first little soiree into it with this game. I've done this with other games before, um, so I want to eventually get into something like this. So this is a practice for me, as well as hopefully it's going to be helpful for anyone who's watching as well. So we're going to be going over Mode Leon's point of view today on things that we see in Overwatch that is consistent with a lot of players playing at the gold rank and below. We want to be able to improve him. Just to give you guys a little bit of background, Mode is a console player, which when I first looked at his replay, I was like, something's a little bit off here. What's going on with the aim? And then I'm like, oh, he's on sticks. So it makes sense. There's definitely some differences between playing Overwatch on PC versus playing Overwatch on console, as we're going to find out. And there's going to be some things that I'm going to recommend to Mode. I'm going to call him Leon because it's a little bit easier. I'm going to recommend to Leon that might make his gameplay a little bit better as he goes forward with his Overwatch career. So without any further ado, we're going to be talking about a couple of things that are right away big differences. You're going to notice that I don't think he has any kind of microphone or chatting within the PS4 because he's playing PlayStation 4 system. So that being said, there's going to be some things that I definitely recommend that he improve on with that. One of them being a microphone. I don't even know if they're allowed to have voice chat on PlayStation 4, but there's some things that he can do to be able to improve that side of the game as well. The first recommendation I'm going to make to him as well in terms of controllers are Scuf sticks. For anyone who doesn't know what Scuf sticks are, they're essentially replacement sticks that can be put into your controller, or you can put attachments that go over top of your current controller thumbsticks that will allow you to get a little bit more traction in certain movements and help you with aiming altogether. I think it also adds accesses, but it's been a long time since I've done any of that stuff because I used to play a little bit of competitive um, console gaming, but I've always been predominantly PC. But without any further ado, those are the big things. Let's get into it right away. So the first thing I always do when I'm hopping into a game, and I stopped right at one because I made a whole list of notes here, is I take a look as an Ana player myself. Take a look at what my team composition is. So right now we can see that we have a Junkrat, we have a Mercy, a Reinhardt, Orisa, and let's see who that other one is. It's hard to really find out. It's Bastion. So we have a Bastion as well. So we're taking a look at the team composition. The first question you're going to ask yourself, regardless of what rank you're at, is what is my job in this composition? So when you're looking at this kind of a comp right now, the big things that you want to look at, the first two things you want to look at, or the first thing you need to look at, is what your tank line composition is. So if you got a Reinhardt and you have an Orisa, that tends to be a high shield kind of comp, so it tends to be more of a bunker comp. Whenever you have an Orisa, you have a bunker comp that you're working with. Now, Ana typically is more suboptimal for a bunker comp, but it's not impossible to play with. It's just not as great. Typically, I'd throw in a Baptiste at this point to play with the Orisa, but we are at lower rank, so a lot of things can go. That being said, if you're dealing with a Reinhardt, let's say this competition was a little bit cleaner, we had a Reinhardt and a Zarya, for example, that would become a brawl comp, and at that point, it's going to change what you're going to be doing, what your objectives are in the game. So for example, if you have that competition with Zarya Reinhardt, you're going to be wanting to look for, as an Ana player, mid-fight nades that are going to set off some antis that will make it really difficult for the other team to heal. The Ana character is a playmaker character. It's a flex support. That being said, You need to be looking for those kinds of situations, trying to open up things. If you're dealing with more of a dive comp, like a Winston, for example, a Diva could also fall into a dive comp, things like that. You're going to want to look for entry nades. So how do you start a fight off? You start off by purpling everyone, and then the Winston dives in. So how your tank line lines up is going to determine what it is that you should be focusing on in the game. Okay, and that's a big key. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but the support that you're playing with also plays a big key as well, who your main support is, if you're playing a flex support in this case. But let's keep going. So in this comp, if I'm dealing with the Reinhardt, I'm definitely looking for more of a mid-fight nade. The Orisa can do some longer range stuff, but I would say that the mid-fight nade's probably going to be a little bit more effective in this comp. Okay, so the first thing I always look at too when we're dealing with your starting position, especially when you're on defense, the starting position for the first fight, in my opinion, should always be a high ground. The reason why you're doing a high ground is that it's just more advantageous for you. There is a pro and con to the high ground, especially because you're playing on console though. This is going to require a little bit of practice on your own end. If you're going to be going high ground, you're going to have to include a lot more what we call Y-axis aiming. So because you're on console on controller, the X-axis game or aiming would only be left to right, and it's very simple for you to work with that. But as soon as you go on the high ground, now the Y-axis will change as well, so you'll have to look up and down as well. So you're going to have to practice that, and it's going to make you a little bit worse of a player in the beginning because you're transitioning to this new positioning that's going to make it a little bit more difficult for you. But over time, that decision of going up there and practicing that will make you better. So you might see a drop in SR for the next couple weeks until you get used to that kind of aiming. But in the long run, you're going to shoot up to platinum, diamond, all that good stuff. So it's about the long run. It's about the long, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Okay, so starting off in the high ground is always what I recommend. It's going to make it easier for you to hit nades. It's going to make it easier for you to avoid threats, all that good stuff. So right away, starting up on those arches above you, right behind, or even on this green. I wouldn't say the green building second floor is great, but that's an option as well. High ground's gonna make it a little bit more easier for you to do your job. We've already made a mistake. Okay, so the mistake that we've made here is that we have absolutely no idea what the enemy composition is. As a support player, your value is directly tied into how long you are alive in a fight, because the enemy is trying to expend resources to kill you. So if you are alive longer and being that kind of a nuisance, it's going to have a big effect on how the enemy team will play that situation. Okay, if you're to die right off the beginning, they start breathing easier because now they can just run through your team. In this situation, you have absolutely no idea what is going to be attacking you on the other team other than the Echo and maybe the Sigma because you saw his shield until about 5 more seconds. At 3:45 is when you would hit your, in PC terms, hit the tab key. I'm not sure what it is on your controller, but it would pull up a screen where you can see where the enemy team is or who the enemy team is and who you're playing with as well. Very important to be checking that regularly because the team compositions will change on the fly a lot of the time, especially in higher level play. Your tank lines will change. That means your job is going to change as an Ana player. And the threat level of the other team could change as well based on seeing you playing as Ana. So you have no idea if you are peeking a Widow right now or peeking a Hanzo that can one-tap you across the map and then cause a big problem for your team. So this peek right here, especially because you're not behind a shield, not optimal. You should be dead. You should be dead, as my coach will say. You should be dead. We're going to keep going forward a little bit longer. So at this point, you're now 25 seconds in. So you should have hit tab, and you should be asking yourself another question. Responding to threats. What can kill you, and how are they going to do it? We don't really know. We know there's a ball, we know there's a Sigma, we know there's an Echo. That's pretty much it. That's all we got. We might know that there's a Bastion. There's a Bastion. They're shooting back at you. That Bastion's dead. So, you see the ball going back here. I think I'm going to back up just a little bit. So you know the ball's back behind you right now, because we're going to respond to threats now. Here. Your mindset in this point of time, because you're responding to a threat, I put that in quotations because I don't think the ball is a big threat to you, but it is a threat that could flank you, and you know it's there, and you're worried about it. Because you're pulling yourself away, remember that the game is always fluid and things are happening all the time. Because you're pulling your aim, your direction away, especially on controller, it's going to take more time for you to switch back over to your tank line that is currently being bombed by a Bastion and a Sigma and all this other stuff. They're taking damage over there. This is all happening on the side while you are focused now on this ball that is a half threat to you. And the reason why I say it's a half threat is because it's not going to directly attack you, and if it does directly attack you, which it could do, you have a sleep. And in this demo, in this replay, you sleep the ball very, very well. So you should be confident in that, right? So responding to that threat and with the sleep is fantastic. Should you be pulling your attention away all the time? A bit questionable, because right now your teammates are dying, your tank line's dying, and Mercy's working her ass off trying to solo heal all through this. So the one thing I would think about is that you do know the ball is there, and this is where I would ask you, do you have a headset like this one? Are you using your TV speakers? What's your sound system set up like? Because me knowing there's a ball there, I'm going to have that mental note in my head that yes, there's a ball behind me. Yes, he could flank me, but I'm going to listen for him. And when he comes up to me, that's when I can turn around and I can focus on him. Right now, my main job is keeping my tanks alive. You hear the ball to your left. Here he comes down. The Junkrat is chasing after him. This, however, is not your job. This is not your job right now. Later on, you're going to get a sleep on him. Great sleep. I love what you're about to do here. For anyone who's noticing this, clearly he doesn't have a microphone. He's not talking orally to his teammates, but he is saying, I need help. I don't even know. You can't see my mouse. Perfect. I need help. He's giving direction. So this is really good. At this level of play, I didn't expect this from you, to be honest. Typically, what you would do to follow up to make this a little bit better is you would time this out, and this is what you would do through a microphone. You would say, ball slept behind, Junkrat, I need you. You're giving him a direct a call out, and then you go 3, 2, 1, and you attack at the same time. So you do something similar to that right here, which is great. So you're able to punish that ball, which is fantastic. Perfect. The fight is won. This is where you want to reset your positioning. Where do you think you want to go? The best positioning is high ground. At this point, you know what your threats are as well. You know it can kill you. There's no long range enemy on the other team that you have to worry about. So going up onto that roof there, or going up to the second floor here, is a fantastic move. Good sleep. Great I also want to say fantastic comms for asking for help. Once again, if you had a microphone, it would probably be a little bit easier to communicate what you need to do. You've done really well sleeping the ball thus far. When you see a ball slamming, you can actually 100% of the time sleep the ball if you position your crosshair where you believe he's going to drop and pre-shoot it. It takes a second for you to pull out of sleep. You do have a sleep here, so you can do this right now. It takes you a second to pull it to sleep, but position your crosshair where you think he's going to slam down, and as soon as you see, I think it was that exact moment. This is a way of 100%. There, right there. As soon as he hits the apex, you hit out your sleep, he's going to drop right down into your sleep, and you'll be able to sleep him 100% of the time, all the time. If you did that there, you probably would have been able to kill him with your team. See how you're late and he starts moving? There's a second, once he hits the ground, that he will freeze there. So that is where your opportunity for sleeping comes into play. So a couple seconds earlier there on that sleep would have been perfect. We're going to go back just a second here. This is something that's going to pop up a few times. And it's something that I'm still working on myself, because it's a mentality that we have that we need to protect ourselves at all times, so to speak. Nading yourself. You currently have 50 damage off your main health, off of 200 health. It's not really necessary for you to nade yourself right now. This is where, once again, communication comes in. You have a Mercy literally like a foot or so away from you, and you can very easily ask her for a heal. Now, I know you don't have a mic, most likely. That's something that you should do. This is your homework, get a mic. But you can also communicate through the same way you're asking for help for heals. I need healing, I need healing. That's far better to hold on to that nade and ask for the top up. We have a moment here where you're going to have a nano as well. Okay? Same thing with the nade. There's timings that you need to be using these nades. There's timings you need to be using these sleeps that are super, super important. The nano is no different. Why? Question I have to ask you, why are we using the nano here? My recommendation is to save that nano. First and foremost, there's only, from what you see, a Reinhardt who's full HP. Maybe he had a little bit of damage, and he's 1v1ing a Sigma at close range. He's already won that fight. And there's no one else for him to follow up on. So you need to think about, when you're nanoing, how do I get the most amount of value out of my ultimates? Okay? And we're going to see later on, very, very soon actually, in about 10 seconds, another example of really poor usage of ultimates. The difference between a person who is in gold and a person who's in plat, diamond, and beyond that is how those teams and those players use their ultimates, track the enemy team's ultimates, but use their ultimates at the best time to obtain the best and maximum value. This is an example of not using the nano in the right way, in my opinion. You can reset high ground again here. Good sleep, nothing much to say there. Another opportunity you could have slept, not a big deal though. Here's the bongo. Okay, so this is what I was talking about with the ultimates. On paper, the bongo could make sense. Based on how close the enemy team is, the bongo helps add additional attack power to your entire team. I'm cool with that. Here's what the problem is. Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. Overkill. Overkill. Alright? So just like your nano, we have a Junkrat who overkilled the situation. Didn't read the situation well. And because of that, you've now wasted 2 ults on a fight that you probably already have won. Okay? So just be careful, take careful note of those things. It's not something that you could do because it's not your own individual play, but I'm giving you an example of something that's even more egregious than what your nano was. Let's go back a little bit. The nade. Why'd you nade here? Let's go back a little bit more. So you see your Reinhardt low. You miss a ton of shots. So you throw a nade. Here's a rule for you. And something I'm still learning myself. Because I know my coach is going to look at this and he's going to be like, well, don't you do that too? The nade is not a replacement for bad aim. For poor aim. I would sooner see you miss a ton of shots, get punished for it by having your Reinhardt die, have the Reinhardt yell at you, and you work on your aim, than you using the nade. And the reason why is that you're reinforcing bad habits when you use the nade, and you're reinforcing better aim and better mechanics when you do it the other way. So I'd rather see you lose the fight than nade this Rein. Especially, your Rein isn't going to die here. You also have a Mercy. If you see my mouse, Mercy healing as well. So you're not going to lose the Reinhardt here. You don't have to worry about that. I would slow things down and just focus on hitting those shots. And because you use that nade, the mines come down. This nade that you threw could have been used to clear some mines for your tanks. And, by extension, could have been used on the ball to make it impossible for them to heal the ball. And then all of a sudden you say, hey, ball antied, turn around, kill the ball. You have sleep here. We're going to talk about this in the future as well. Very difficult shot to hit, but the sleep could be used to stop a Sigma ult. Okay? So, give that a shot. There's nothing wrong with you firing it out and seeing what happens. It's pretty hard to hit this one, but the one that we're going to see later on is going to be, there's going to be some problems with that one. That one we can definitely work with. We're going to go back just a little bit here because there's a lot of things that happen here. And in this piece here is something that's extremely difficult. It's very, very difficult for a new player, and including myself, to really pick up on. Something that I'm constantly working on. But I think it's something that you need to be cognizant of. And that's death tracking. Okay. Top right of your screen. What's the score? It's 6-5 in your favor. Great. They lost a Mercy. Fantastic. 5-5. 5-5. Mercy rezzed. But that Mercy res is not good because we lost our Reinhardt. We lost our Reinhardt. That's not good. So think about it this way too. The way I like to think about it. If you ever played chess before, if you lose the queen on your team, that hurts. If you lose a pawn, not so much of a big deal. I think of the Reinhardt as the queen. Okay, even though it moves like a king and it hits like a king, it's like a queen because it has a big amount of impact and power on your team. The Reinhardt needs to stay alive as long as possible. Right, you got to keep it alive as long as possible as your job is support, because that's where things start snowballing out of effect when you lose your Rein. That being said, it's 5-5. Three to 5. The reason why I'm bringing this up is that when you see that, and at this point the fight is lost, you need to make a decision, and you make a pretty good decision here. You need to die quickly, or you need to run away as soon as possible. So you do a good job here, but there's other times when you don't do it so well. So being cognizant of where the score is at will determine what your position is going to be. So you either have to run the hell away, or you go in there and you try to die as soon as possible, which is what you do, which is good. Now, the reason why, for anyone who's new to Overwatch watching my video right now, the reason why you need to die right away here is because you're going to create an opportunity to stagger. If they stagger you, you're going to make it really hard for the team, for your team, to potentially win the next fight that could hold off on this next point right here. Every time the team gets to a point, they add extra time that they can finish the entire escort at the end of the match. So you have an opportunity now, because you died early, to be able to get another team fight in there before this point is over, and that's huge. That can win you or lose you a game.
60 seconds remaining. I'm not ready to hang
So
up.
knowing when to die is important, but staying alive in most cases, super important as well. Okay, we did it again. Now, this nade probably saved your Junkrat, but you didn't know that when you threw it. You didn't know it was going to save your Junkrat when you threw it. Okay, because the ball's about to come in here and smash your Junkrat. That being said, you missed a few shots here. Okay, once again, I would have rather that Junkrat died, that Junkrat yell at you on voice chat, or anything along those lines, and have it punish you so you reinforce the good habits versus nading the Junkrat and reinforcing the bad. In this case, I'm okay with the nade, but just remember, you did miss like 2 or 3 shots before. So you've lost this team fight. You now have to reposition yourself. Where should you go? Reposition the high ground. Reset to the high ground. Reset to the high ground. Don't worry about that guy. He's dead. They're inting. Reset to the high ground. Reset to the high ground. Reset to the high ground. Good nade, but reset to the high ground. It would have been a lot easier if you're on the high ground. Okay, please reset to the high ground. Go to the high ground. Go to the high ground. Don't stand next to the sleeping ball. Go to the high ground. Go to the high ground. Still going to the high ground. Go to the high ground. Ah, you're at the high ground. You did it. You're there. You're there. You're in a much better position. You're in a good spot where you can throw those impact nades. You're in a good spot. This is good. I'm happy with this. I'm really. Oh. You drop back down off the high ground. And because you dropped off the high ground, this happens. Well, this is awkward. Now you're behind the enemy team, which isn't a bad thing if you had your nade that you just threw on yourself. Could have purpled a lot of people. Could have, you know, prevented these healers from doing anything. Could have killed the Ana. Could have done a lot of things. But now you're in this really awkward no man's land. Like really awkward. Because you can't see your tanks that are getting blasted by a bastion. And they need heals. And you're in a really bad spot altogether. Oh. The ball saw ya. Sigma saw ya. Shmushed. You're dead. So, had you had stayed on the high ground, go back a little bit further. Oh, we just had it. Had you had stayed on this high ground here and just played up here, you probably wouldn't have avoided a lot of the problems you just ran into. And you probably wouldn't have died. Just saying. Just saying. Just saying. High ground, high ground, high ground. Stay on the high ground. As much as you can, stay on the high ground. Unless there's a threat or something and you have to drop down, then that's fine. And you're gonna hear this a lot. You're gonna hear this a lot because I think it's something that a lot of lower ranked players don't take into account. Once again, it comes down to your job. You know, you're looking for a mid-fight nade for your Rhine. So you need to be in a good position to throw that nade. If you're in a good position to throw that nade, it's a lot easier to land the nades and have those big impacts. You're in the high ground. Stay here. You're in the high ground. This is where you should be playing. This is where you should be playing. And you're going to feel, you're probably feel the difference. You got a beautiful shield to play around. You don't have to worry about a lot of things. Can you see how much easier this is? Like already it's easier. You're able to sleep a ball, which I don't think you needed to because the ball's probably already dead. You know, you can do lots of things. let's go back a little bit. As much as there's good things, there are some bad things. So the sleep right away, I think this ball was dead regardless, and you probably didn't need to do it. Okay, small. Here, this is where I have a little bit of an issue. Okay, the sleep could be used in a super important situation, right? So you want to try to hold on to your resources as much as you possibly can, unless you absolutely need it. In this case, the ball is probably going to die. And then you nano the Rhine. I don't like this nano. Why don't I like this nano? Because the Rhine's effective range. The Rhine currently has nothing to swing at. And he's going to have to go searching, as you can see, searching to get some value out of your nano right now. And guess what's happening right now? Mr. Music Man himself over here, Mr. Sigma. Guess what he's doing? He's ulting. Boy, you know who could really use a nap right now? Mr. Sigma. Let me just check the timer here. Cooldown time. Oh, 5 seconds on the cooldown timer. What did we do just a few seconds ago? Right, we slept the ball that was probably going to be dead anyway. Could really use a sleep right now. Just saying. Even if you miss the sleep, you go for it. You go for the sleep on Sigma. You might save this fight. These kinds of moves right here are the differences between winning and losing fights. So just be mindful of that. It's not going to go away over 1 or 2, tries of doing this. It's going to take time, but that's an impact sleep, and you're going to start noticing the big difference here once you start practicing that. So Bastion has a field day with your Orisa, who was just killed basically by the Sigma at that point. And now it's dead time. You're dead. You're dead. So yeah, cooldown timers, super important. And think about, the nanos, the effective ranges of the people that you're nanoing. That was a bad nano on your Rhine because your Rhine had nobody to swing at. If he was mid-fight and you nanoed him, or if he was just after a shatter and knocked a whole bunch of people down, sure, nano him then, because then you're going to clean it up. Just think about using it correctly. Timings are super, super important. Would have been sweet to have that sleep for that Sigma, eh? So, got a question for you. Where are you going there, buddy? Where are you going? Where are you going, buddy? Oh, look. There's the enemy team. Hey, guys, you hungry? Can I feed you? Are you guys hungry? So that happens, and now the Rhine's like, what the fuck is going on? Ana, why? Why? How can this be, Ana? How can this be? I don't know what to do. What the hell's going on? I'm dead. Okay, so I think a good rule of thumb for this, an actionable item for you here, as a support, I'm thinking that your mindset changed to DPS, maybe? Maybe you play a little DPS and you're like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to see if I can make an impact play. I'm going to peek this window and I'm going to shoot some people. But once again, your role is support. And a funny thing the coach that I work with told me the other day is that you are a sniper, but you're not a sniper, right? If you're going to take the best player who plays Ashe and the best player who plays Ana, the best player, and you face them off 1v1, the best player who plays Ashe is going to beat that Ana 10 out of 10 times. Because Ana's just not a sniper. Ashe is meant for that, right? Widow versus an Ana. Widow's going to win that as well. So I think a good actionable item for you here is when you see a tank, you play with that tank, and then you stretch away from the tank. You stretch away onto the defensive side. So whatever area you have control of, you don't want to go further into the enemy lines. So stay behind the tank. Think about staying behind the tank as much as you can. If you have any questions about that, just let me know. I'll be happy to tell you. Because of that decision now, though, look what's happening to your team. this is all your fault. This is all your fault. If you were alive in the situation, your Ryan's probably alive, right? I'm not saying that you would have touched the point and prevented it from happening, but you would have prevented this snowball from happening. You probably would have prevented this snowball from happening. Guess what I want? Where I want you to go? I want you to go to the high ground. Go to the high ground. At this point, go to the high ground. Go up top right. Go to the high ground. Play up there. This is a nice safe spot. Go to the high ground. Go to the high ground. Please go to the high ground. Go. I mean, nice kill, but you should have been on the high ground. Look at your team. They're all on the high ground. You should go there. Almost got a good sleep, but still should be on the high ground. You know why you got shot? Because you're not on the high ground. And you know what else is going on? Your Mercy really hates you right now because you're splitting her job and making her job very, very difficult because now she's healing you. You can see in the bottom left, she's healing you. She's about to heal you. And she has a whole team on the high ground that she's trying to keep alive as well. So she's like splitting her shift. She's splitting her shift right now. So yeah, high ground. High ground. High ground. Get on the high ground. Now I know that there's the tanks. Here's the thing. I know that the tanks were moving up and they were playing in a really stupid position, and you were trying to support them. That's great. This is where communication comes in. Tell them, hey, we're playing the high ground. Can you play a little bit closer to us? Right? Or everyone should be pushing up with the tanks at that point. Regardless, this is where you need to step in and say, hey, I'm playing here. Can we play this position? Can you play this position so I can, you know, build up my nano? Can you play this position so we can stay alive? All that good stuff. Communicate. Communication is really, really key here. High ground. You died because you weren't on the high ground. Mercy couldn't save you. We're getting pretty close to the end of this first half. This first point here. High ground. Reposition high ground. Now it's too late. Don't try to heal your teammates with the nade. Okay. We've now seen this 2 times, maybe 3. Sleep the Sigma. You got the cooldown. Go for it. Go for the gamer sleep. You can save this. You can literally save this point right here. This is you. This is you, baby. This is you. Oh, didn't go for it. Oh boy. So I think because now you're on high ground. You're in long range. Definitely want to see you scoping in a little bit more just because it makes it a little easier to hit the shots. But definitely, I think now that I've given you some of the feedback that I've seen already, definitely slowing down and working on the aim is going to be super important. But I definitely think the Scufs might help in a situation because stick aim is really difficult. Stick aim's really difficult. And that nade was really good, by the way, what you did there, because you antied and you also healed your teammate, which was good value for your nade. So this is pretty much over at this point. A little low on the nade. Could go a little higher, but it's all nitpicking at this point. You've already lost at this point. Good sleep. I like it. So there's a lot of things that you do really well. There's a lot of things that you do really well, and there's some things you have opportunities in, right? So we just want to identify all those opportunities. I'm nitpicking a lot of things, but I'm also identifying some things that I feel are very egregious that if you start right now, start changing, yes, in theory, it might make you worse in the beginning, but like I said, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. We want to think about where you're going to be 3 months down the road, 4 months down the road. You want to be in Diamond, you want to be in Masters. These little things that we're talking about, resetting the high ground, making sure you know what your job is in the comp, what's going to kill you. If you focus on those things right away, you're setting yourself up for really good habits. It's going to make things a whole lot easier for you in your role as Ana, or even as a support in general. So keeping that focus is super, super important. And I think we're about to touch on something else later on, talking about focus, something that as a coach myself, as a personal trainer, I've learned along the way, as things that could be really, really important to not only in real life, but also in game. We'll be discussing that in a little bit. So now we're into overtime, so we didn't get to see the first point. Let's just pause right here. Let's bring it back. We're gonna pause right here because you hit your tab button, or the equivalent of the tab button, in Overwatch PC. It's gonna pop up any second now, right? There we go. Perfect. So now you can see this is what I want you hitting. I want you hitting this button regularly, okay? Especially after 15 seconds into the first part of the round, you'll be able to assess your threats a lot better, okay? That's really the information that matters the most. But you're also looking at your team comp right now. So we have a Winston, we have a Reinhardt, we have a Sombra Sim, Bastion, yourself, and then a Mercy. So your support line hasn't changed at all, but your tank line has changed a little bit. I think they might change it again, I can't remember. But in this case right here, you have a dive and you have a brawl, okay? You're still going to be mostly brawl, but you now have more opportunity to nade out, to initiate the fight. So your nade is going to change. Your nade job will change a little bit. Or it can change. Okay. Small thing. Here it is. Small thing. Whatever you're doing here is not going to help you. Okay? I don't know if you're looking at this person because they piss you off in the game, but this right here is taking your focus away, okay, from what really matters. You're about to go into an overtime situation. You're looking to increase your SR. Your focus should be on what's my job, what do I got to do, where am I going to run, all that good stuff. Set yourself up in the right mindset. If something's happening with your Mercy in game and you're like, I hate this bitch, I don't want to ever play with him again, you deal with that after the game. Focus on the here and now. There's a study out that I teach to my clients where when someone is at a job and they go and they check their phone, just by checking their phone and being focused on that, they end up losing focus on the main task at hand, and it takes approximately 40 minutes for your brain to resituate on what it is that you're trying to do, your objective. Same thing happens here. If you are focusing on the game, and then all of a sudden you pull your focus away and you're like, oh, let me check my phone, let me check this guy's career profile because he's pissing me off, or whatever the case may be, this is throwing you off. This will throw off your performance by leaps and bounds. So right here, big piece. Don't do this. Don't be that guy. We're going to move ahead a little bit. Okay, so we're going to be talking a little bit about target priority. Don't throw the nade to replace your aim. Just did it again. Don't do that. This is all fine. So remember your positioning here. You're pulling away for your Winston right now, which your Winston, in my opinion, is out of position. He shouldn't be on his own right now. But you're pulling away, which means your Mercy is now taking the load of healing for people. Just be mindful of that. Balls on you. Good sleep. Hang on. What are you about to do? You're not going to do it, are you? Uh-oh, you use your nade. Right here on your screen, guess what's happening? Hannibal, the guy that you're not really a fan of, maybe, potentially, is healing you. You didn't need to throw this nade. On top of that, that nade that you just threw could have woke the ball that you just slept. And that could have been problems too. So this is where I was like, he's definitely on sticks. First and foremost, the headshot from an Ana does not change the damage comparatively to anywhere on the body. Does not change anything. But the big key here is that the time that you've spent lining up that headshot, you got to remember, I've said this before, the game is fluid. There's always something going on. The time that you spent doing this, something was happening behind you. Your team's starting to die. That Winston dived in. I'm not saying that you could have saved that Reinhardt, but you could have motioned towards him. You should have been motioned towards him. You could have. It's possible, right? So just remember, the game is fluid. What's the death count right now? Are you looking at that? Because that's an important factor too. So they lost their Ana. It is now a 4v5. Remember that. 4v5. 3v5. You've lost both your tanks. You only have a few seconds left on the clock. So I get that you're going on to touch here. So it's good that you responded that way. Just remember, in other situations when we're not in overtime, those are things you want to be keeping track of as well. Okay? So you're about to switch to BAP here. And I love this switch. I really like the switch because you're going to be in a bunker comp, like a full bunker comp, which is great. You have a Bastion, you have, well, not a full bunker comp, but similar. Well, I guess it is a little bit. So Orisa and BAP work really well together, and so does the Bastion. Once again, what's going to kill you? What's your job in this comp? You got to be thinking about all these things. Now, I don't have a lot of experience with BAP, so there's holes here in my own understanding, and I'm going to be learning BAP very soon, so I'll be able to give you more feedback. But thinking about those things, where do you want to start your first fight? Typically still, I would say high ground is going to be great. Because you're in a bunker, you can get away with being on the floor as well. But I'd still prefer high ground as much as I possibly can. So you're conflicted right now as to where you want to start, I believe, because you're looking back and forth. You're telling them to move up. Okay, I see what you're doing here. So maybe there is some communication that we just can't hear right now. Just be careful. Widow could be popping out over here, and you're not behind the shields. In a high level game, if a Widow comes out here, you're dead. Ball's behind you. Okay, we're 15 seconds in. What kills you on the enemy team? We don't know. You haven't checked. Check. Check. You end up winning this, but it's these habits that we want to start reinforcing for you right away. Because, yes, you are winning at these ranks, but the possibilities of you being sniped or dying instantaneously is the difference between you winning, losing games at a higher level. So you need to start reinforcing these things right away. How you handle everything here is fine. I'm sure there's some things that we can work on individually in small little things, but for the most part, you do what needs to be done to win the game based on the skill levels of the players that you're playing against. That doesn't mean that you could be dead right here. It doesn't mean that your teammates can't be dead right here, because you are focusing very heavily on this ball, distracting you, and you do have a lot of teammates that are low HP, but it works out for you. So, that's pretty much it. But what I want to talk about now is our wrap-up Okay, some things that I want you taking out of this, at least things that I feel you should take out of it. If we're in a live session together, I would ask you, what are your top 3 takeaways? What are the top 3 learnings that you can take into your next match? The ones that I want you really focusing on and thinking about, and you can always rewatch this to be able to get more out of it, because sometimes watching it the first time you don't get a whole lot, but then if you watch it over and over again, you get more and more. Here's the wrap up. Scoreboard is key. So the tab key that we use in the PC, I'm not sure what it is for you guys, but bring up that scoreboard as much as you possibly can so you can see exactly who is on the other team. And you're going to see, as you get higher in ranks, they're going to shift people a lot. They're going to try to adapt to what you guys are doing. So your job and your positioning is going to be indicative of what is going on that screen. So always be checking that. You should be afraid as a support. So positioning is going to be very key in those things. Okay. What kills you? You being alive is directly correlated to winning and losing fights for your team. Right? So make sure that you stay alive as long as you possibly can. The way you do that, check that scoreboard. Nading yourself as opposed to asking for heals. I'd like to see you actively, since you don't have a mic, talking about you need healing. Be aggressive with that. Get top ups, especially in the times when you're in downtime, when you can reset to a high ground or whatever the case may be and there's nothing going on. Get that top up. Don't throw a nade on yourself. Okay. And the last one is repositioning to the high ground as much as possible to get those big impact nades. We didn't see a whole lot of big impact nades from you as the Ana player, where we had a whole lot of antis. We had a couple here and there. We had a ball anti and all that good stuff. But if you were in a better spot, I feel you would have had a bigger impact for your team overall. So positioning yourself in the right spots and playing those spots and not being afraid to play those spots is going to be super, super key. So at any rate, that's what I've observed, and I'm still very new to the game myself, so I'm learning a lot, but I hope that was helpful for you, Leon, and anyone else who has any questions, comments, things that you want to call me out on, saying that I'm not right here. Feel free to drop it in the comments below, and we'll see you guys next time. I'm looking to do this again, so if you guys have any questions or you want me to review one of your demos, be happy to do it. Looking to practice, and I'm looking to get better myself. So thank you very much, guys. Bye.